A fact, of course, as one agreed, no doubt, true enough, aloud. In a court so right, I'd say, well said.
A fact. A fact. A fact.
He takes himself seriously. Motel rooms have lost their punch. Feeling is
A fact.
expressed in bags. There are two, and inside those two there are two more. It's not an easy situation.
A fact.
But there is something like abandoned in the air. There is something like the feeling of the idea of
A fact.
silk scarves in the air. There is a kind of madness to it,
A fact.
the kind we read about in magazines. One of the bags contains
A fact.
a bottle of liquor. He pours himself a small drink in a fluted plastic glass.
A fact.
Sans ice. He thinks to himself, if I were from the big town, I would become a debonair. He has resolved of the kind that takes every message and order, rule, law, as error. That lone building that contradicts the inner voice that resists to zoo in short.
Agreed.
Is his and that the other kind. How could it be? He is unhappy with the world.
Agreed.
He works with forwardness and backwardness. He works with what things are ahead of us. And with what things are behind us. I guess the other kind would be to work with things that are alongside the attachments.
Agreed.
Obedience is impossible for him.
Agreed.
At the same time, he is cooperative. And he's solicitous. No one in the world would mistake him for a real person. Obedience, etc. I think that a lot of the materials of Perfect Lives, the narrative materials and the idea of the music, I could probably trace back in my thinking almost 10 years. It takes me a long time to sort out materials, and I've noticed that in the way I work, I start working with musical ideas in very simple forms, and then they grow through performance. He pushes down the button.
As one.
Very dramatic. Phone.
As one.
Rings immediately.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I think that Perfect Lives actually started almost 10 years ago when I started writing, when I started getting the idea of making an opera for a recorded medium without even having television in mind at that time. At the same time, he is cooperative. and indeed so
Solid
stuck.
Agreed.
No one in the world would mistake him for a real person, obedience, etc.
No doubt.
He handles himself in the morning.
No doubt.
I met Carlotta Schoolman, who had just started working with the Kitchen Center in New York. It was her idea to put some kind of art form on television that would represent that kind of genre that was developing in New York at the time. And she asked me if I would direct a piece. And I told her about Perfect Lives, and I told her it was, you know, a big piece, and that it would be a big effort to try to get it on television. We've spent the last 3 years bringing it to its present stage.
The very first thing that Bob proposed was very much just like a small piece of Perfect Lives. It was a scheme for showing Blue Jeans, keyboard playing, to the local cable audience. But we were also aware of the fact that Perfect Lives existed as mini songs and started to talk about putting that into television format. As soon as we realized that the piece was of a certain scale, we started to put together possibilities for it to be seen by the largest possible audience.
We had decided that we weren't going to make a stage version and then have it documented. We were going to make something for television. And we started looking for somebody who would be sympathetic to that idea. And Carlotta invited John. I had not met John at that time. I only knew his reputation as a video artist.
I first got involved with Perfect Lives a number of years ago when I was invited to see a in-house presentation just by Bob and Blue Jean. I had heard that someone had written a video opera, and I had heard about the general visual scheme, and it was very, very close to some of my own concerns about how you present something in a different form, but making sure that that different form and the content are linked in a very, very solid way, so that how you see something and what you're seeing are indistinguishable. When I went to see this early performance, I was mesmerized. I thought the music was lovely. I thought the impact was overwhelming. I could see the size and the scale of the piece was of epic proportions. When I talked to Bob about the visual presentation, it sounded like he would be chroma keyed in front of postcards, which to me was a real waste of time. And over the next few days wrote him about a 5 or 6 page letter detailing with little sketches what I thought was possible in terms of visual presentation. That if you were going to try and tell about someone's coming into contact with someone else and you wanted to do it in a metaphorical kind of way, these are the visual devices you could use. And apparently he got the letter and went to Carlotta Schoolman, who is the producer of the piece, and said, we should give this guy a job.
Allowed.
And a statue of a man and a horse at war. The sculptor has made the horse look stupid, except edge. The edge moves. It's as if there is no other place. His mind races. 1 G in for 2 G's in a
Allowed.
When the 2 men spoke, they spoke about permanence and impermanence.
Perfect Lives is a perfect structure in a certain way, in that everything visually depends on something else. This is a master combined template of all the ways that all the different elements could be put together and how they would actually be mapped out onto one giant diagram. They include the template for the park, which is just a low horizon. If this giant frame is the television picture, most of the action in the park takes place with a low horizon with nothing above it. This can be something as simple as a field of corn with a blue sky. or the arm of a woman outstretched on the back of a couch. And it's meant to basically give the feeling, as in the first episode, The Park, of the musicians arriving in town, opening up their bags, newness, freshness, beginnings.
Aloud.
In its prime form, Perfect Lives should only be seen on television because the varying points of view and the unfolding of the entire story are as much a part of how you feel when you receive the music and the words as is the actual story itself, which in most cases people don't know what the story is, and in a lot of ways, like with rock and roll songs, you shouldn't really know the details.
The song is dedicated to Maurice de Sutter. The motto is, well, it can't hurt. These are songs about the corn belt and some of the people in it. Pour on.
Section
The
1.
show is called Remembering. The enormous field of the fence. You're on the inside looking out. Different being old alone than being old together. For instance, when you're old alone, it's hard to remember that you're old or that you're alone.
Remembered is a problem.
The second episode's template, the second episode being the supermarket, is converging lines in the distance, using the baseline of the park as a ready example of where almost everything in the picture should sit. The supermarket is a feeling of stretching out. So the converging lines come up from the baseline we established in the park and meet at some infinite future. And a joke that Bob hadn't heard but I think is appropriate is, why do parallel lines never meet? Because they were never introduced.
That's always a problem.
Every other weekend, they take rooms adjoining. They regret the rooms. They want something more. How to find it?
Remove but
Style is important after all. Say what you will about it. For instance, who wants to return?
disembodied, stuck in the library. We do.
What the heck?
Welcome home.
Dressed in red, told and told. Welcome home.
I feel like I was kind of thrown into a sink or swim situation in the sense of there being a certain lack of direction, and I don't mean that negatively. I assume it was because he trusted us to find our way in it and find who we are, which was actually frustrating a lot of the time until I really realized that that's what was happening. When I work in somebody else's work, it's more helpful to me to know what they want me to do. And I think I realized that what he wanted me to do was find out what I'm supposed to do myself.
The singers sing along with the tapes. They listen to the tapes and they comment on them. The tape serves as a cue track for them. The score, I guess, in traditional music, the score would be that funny piece of paper with all those lines and dots on it. In this piece of music, the score would be the words, which are on the television monitor, and the pre-recorded tapes.
It's possible to tell from looking at the mirror. John, for instance, stupid.
Food rates on the rise.
Supermarket managers counted on the emergency.
Do they think it grows on trees?
We were told who we are in a certain way. We're different people in different episodes, although I don't remember what they are. I actually don't concern myself with that too much because since there's no real like drama or acting involved, we're just like singing and trying to read our parts. I don't pretend to be, I don't really act like somebody different in each thing. I kind of let Bob worry about who we are through what he's saying.
If you were of an age and not otherwise different, you could be standing in the choice of baked beans, or in the choice of cleansers, or in the choice of pet accessories, or in the choice of pickles, or in the choice of sundry drugs.
Sometimes Bob might decide that we should sing the sentence along with him, or he might decide that we should all of a sudden say this word at this particular time, and we didn't really know before. Certain things are prescribed and certain things aren't, so we don't even, the things that are prescribed even, we don't necessarily always do. I might stop for a while, or we might do more, so we never really know.
They think that politically, why now?
There is no institution for producing contemporary opera in the United States. Opera in the United States is mainly a kind of museum-going activity. So that I think you teach yourself what's denied you. I mean, you unless you're totally nuts, you don't fantasize about doing something that may be done eventually 100 years after you die. I mean, you have to work with stuff that's around you. And the stuff that's around me now, I mean, the possibility for me making opera in the United States is the most realistic in television. It's the medium that allows me to work.
The next episode is The Bank, and The Bank is characterized by a grid, which is basically all of these perpendicular lines, and it's meant to be, of course, in the simplest way, the teller's grid that sits in front of the different bank tellers. And in the bank you hear all the tellers and all their names and how they like their job very much, and the roteness of the music and the rigidness of the visual pattern go together.
The song is dedicated to Art Nyman of Art Nyman's Jewelers. And the motto is, you can do anything you want, but you can't do anything. The interpretation is, when you marry a woman who's a foot taller than you are, you can't come out dressed on your wedding night like a woman. These are songs about the Corn Belt and some of the people in it.
Or.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the bank, that's her job. Mostly she helps people count their money, she likes it. 1, 2, 3, 4. But today's the wedding, and she's home at 5 in the morning, down the stairs, out the door, off the porch, around the corner. Here we are with the motor. Where does she think they think she's going at 5 in the morning? In case they didn't know, with them and Dwayne and me in the car, and this car is full of holes. You don't follow the family car when you leave the dark. She was young going to Indiana, so today, leaving the dark car full of holes. No guys take her flowers, ring, and a bit of the front seat there, Dwayne and me in the back. That's love. My Barker and the boys, for the true believers, people, men and women of the car, the myth of the limo. The seats are stained with some sort of stuff. This is scary for the kids to see them rolling to look for Jesus. Except in this car, the whole room bottom, not in the doors and windows. So here we are in May, on our way to Indiana, and Gwen in front of the lovers. And in back, Gwen and me. Gwen, understand now that you forgiveness. Well, actually, all it needs is another chance. That's not asking too much. This time, there is no fear, no shame, no caution. My heart is so full. There in the backseat with Dwayne. This time, throw myself at the feet of your recklessness. I learned finally that's something, and to give the blessing. At this point, when he produced the Queen, the Raw family up nerve, tongues on the radio to get a sound. Click!
Do you like
like an old-time melody.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I love you like a dot, dot, dot symphony.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Music brings back a memory because the time stops. Not a treasury. I say, alright. I say, what a shame. I say, what did I do? I say, who's to blame? I say, I loved you, and then I call your name, and I say, I would do it again.
Up until very recently, it may be changing now, but up until very recently, there hadn't been much reason for an American composer to try to make a style statement. I mean, first place, there's so much of it, and it's so diverse. I mean, the music in the United States, and also the situation for getting your music played and the institutions and that kind of thing don't really encourage that. So that I think that a typical American composer worked pretty much in isolation for the first 10 or 15 years of his or her life, and you really don't understand. You don't really understand what you until after you've done it.
Naturally, this one consequence of our modulation. Measure one, and the other one is the song itself inside the car click.
The beautiful thing about Perfect Lives is that it not only has the structure, the emphasis on a very beautiful, elegant structure that's there, that structures the materials, but only the materials. It also provides an opportunity, very much like in a jazz band, where, for instance, a Coltrane chart is totally symmetrical. You look at it and it's just, absolutely looks like architecture. But then the way Coltrane plays a solo is just, marvelous. It's just flying. It's just beautiful. It's the same opportunity in Perfect Lives in relation to this complex time structure.
She is no longer with us. She's only with them. We are with them. We go out together, four of us, planning great things, rearrange things around us so that forever after, when I talk to Gwen, or when you ain't talking to Gwen, there will always be the sky.
The first 4 songs in Perfect Lives are all in asymmetrical rhythms, and the last 3 are all symmetrical. So the Park, for instance, is in 13. The bar is a crossover because it's 7, but it's 4 plus 3, 7. And then the last 3, the church, for instance, is the most symmetrical. It's absolute 4/4 time, just absolute steady time. Within those larger beat structures, the subdivisions, the beats within those, you can group the cycle. They're not really subdivisions. They're ways of grouping the cycles, so that 13 would be, for instance, 8 plus 5. Or any other smaller combinations of that. And what's generally going on is that there are cycles that the voice is doing, usually the longest cycles, the full beat, the pre-recorded keyboards and pre-recorded percussion parts, which are other material that's going on, sort of clocking. And so you get this kind of supportive rhythmic time structure and metric structure, metrical universe, literally, almost like quantum idea. It's very much like the E King or one of the very famous numerical structures. We can either play within those asymmetric or non-symmetrical times, or we can be out of sync.
Oh, Bonnie, I love you, I love you, I love you, and I am without regret. I say, baseball eternity, that I love you, and I am without regret. Put that in your private fucking asshole.
In the next episode, the bar, where we just are left with the vertical lines, which in their simplest way are the bottles lined up around the bar and the patrons on their bar stools, vertical.
This song is dedicated to the Enos family. And the motto is, takes one to steer and one to cuddle. And the interpretation is, if there's anything wrong with us at all, it's that we're not smart enough to share our intelligence.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
These are songs about the Corn Belt and some of the people in it. Or, in the beginning, there were a rock kazoo. And on those rocks, with harder rocks, we learned to make a million bruises. Just spell out things like, we were here and watched the water. They only moved it. The idea of bruises adding up to something, from rocks to skin. A tendency toward motion pictures. In this case, on the forearm, slightly gone to see Rodney. In a garland of roses and with a flag. 48 stars. 48. The good old days. Good old flowers flagging Rodney in a military style. A one-man Arlington. Good luck, Rodney. Good luck. Right when you can. I'll be here when you return, unchanged, faithful, still desperately in love.
Perfect Lives is a piece of music, the scale of which in previous years would be defined as opera, in the sense that it would incorporate a large number of types of material, musical materials, stage actions, costumes, which refers, I think, less to the materials itself, but to the scale. In the modern world, which we might consider ourselves living in, the area of music has been expanded to incorporate structures, images, pictures, words, social situations, relationships among performers and artists, and their relationship to the society itself. And when one defines music in that sense, and when one describes opera as having that large scale, then that's how, for me, the definition of Perfect Lives as an opera is evolves. Ideally, television has replaced the stage or the Grand Theater.
And he's been standing out in back there every night for a year or so. And, well, I've done it 3 times, and 3 times is enough, I'd say. And he says right off, we don't serve fine wine and half pints, buddy. We're all in this together, aren't we? Hi, my name is Buddy.
In the sense that the musical materials very much have to do with a middle-of-the-road standpoint. I mean, it's very much that idea of cocktail music, very pleasing tonal music. It's very, very consonant, and which, in one sense, I hate to use the word bland, but beginning with materials which in themselves would be very bland, and then building upon those.
We take sound so much for granted, don't we? It's the sound of God. We don't serve fine wine and half pints, buddy, it's the sound of God. C-C-E, C-C-G, C-C-B, C-C-G, always. Especially in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, and always through the night. C-C-E, C-C-G, C-C-B, C-C-G, industrial. Outdrivers and cows, Rodney thinks. We simply stand there looking out. Vast pauses between cow events are illuminated by the crashing of the cosmos. Chew, crash, blink, crash, left, foreleg, forward, crash, rear, right leg, forward, crash, chew, crash, blink, crash, blink, chew, left, foreleg, forward, blink, etc. It has not occurred to Rodney that he could lie down with animals. The bar is bad enough. 6. One wonders, naturally, what the average boogie-woogie student thinks of this. But then, maybe that's Buddy's charm, too. This is the close-up in honor. Big muscle, Rodney.
The next episode, the entire screen is divided in half, and it's a metaphoric half. It's not a literal division, although sometimes it can be. But it's a pairing, and it's the living room, and it's a dialogue between the sheriff and his wife, in which they talk about the perfect bank robbery.
This song is dedicated to Fred Stiegel. He's the only son of Frederick and Helen Stiegel, and I don't think he would mind if I said it's too late now. So his motto is, the buck stops here. These are songs about the Corn Belt and some of the people in it war on a quote, in a certain kind of light, a piece of something on a person's clothing, unquote. Gosh, how scary. Now seated in the evening, she faces due east, i.e. placed in space and still a flux in time. He, on the other hand, that is her right, faces pure north, i.e. set in time and totally adrift in space. How dull is the lamp? 9 p.m. Gosh, they have done this forever. A typical two-shot. Well, how's your day today? It was too much for me.
She says,
Could you be a instance? One says, when I see those birds in cages, I know they're sad. Two says, that's a mistake. Birds don't get sad. That's just the way they look when they can't fly. The other says, mind over ... She says, you mean, who are they? What we know is she lives in town, he's been here before. What we don't know is how they spend their time apart.
she says,
You look tired, Will. Could you take a day off? I'm like the mayor of the trailer park. It's true, I count 5. But I know there are 4. Somewhere out of town and back, she says, is the courier one of us? Well, someone knows the ropes.
she says,
Where are the 4, Will?
He says,
One, the mastermind, is connected to somebody local with a European name. 2, his buddy, who's already set out local. The bystanders may not ever heard it at all. 3, some local woman with a European name. And the 4th is an insider.
she says,
Where's the 5th then? I keep counting 5, but it must be my imagination.
I first became involved with the piece essentially as an assistant to John Sam. I acquired the role of staging the piece mostly by default because I was the one who was plugging in the television and therefore had to have was involved in deciding where they were going to be. So my involvement in the piece is primarily in the staging.
Only after you start noticing, must be a positive way of thinking of it. He says, what happens when the children get together? A long pause. They tell jokes. She says, that's better than drinking bottles, isn't it? Long pause. Depends on the joke.
she says,
Is there enough work for everyone?
He says,
Well, we encourage repetition. There are no limits on what a human being can do.
I think Perfect Lives is a great break in the musical tradition of how images and sound go together in dramatic form. Most importantly because it was composed for television, because it was composed for a very flat, very artificial, very weak medium in a certain way that I find very invigorating and exciting. And it was composed so that the means of presentation to an audience of a story, of a dramatic line, is completely connected to the devices we have been coming up with, or I've been coming up with, to get that story across. And these are what I think of as re-metaphors for certain musical ideas that I know exist and have been worked out by Bob and Peter and Blue.
Guns, 15, B, business, thrills, 20, D, the flaw in him, 25, G1, sleep, and words, 30, G2, the young Marys, confusion, problems, 35, 36, H, questions, of
When you see an opera or a musical comedy in a stage presentation, the framing of the presentation is something that supposedly you are supposed to withhold your disbelief about. In TV, we're actually leaping or allowing the audience to leap inside that particular frame. There's no suspension of disbelief because you don't believe it in the first place. And that allows us a great deal of kind of magician's power. And when the opera finally does unfold, I think it'll come at people so fast that as opposed to normal musical presentations, it'll be a complete sensory experience. It'll start to vibrate.
Yeah, 25, G1, sleep, 28 words, 30, G2, the young Marys,
confusion,
problems,
35, 36, and 5, systems, outside, 42, 43, M6, the city, guns, 15, B, business, thrills, backseat, 20, 21, D, the flaw in him, recess, confusion, problems, 35, 36, H, questions systems, of things, out, 40, side, and consciousness, 2, never heals, 45, P, food, third party feelings, second, thoughts, 15, M7, S, the transfer, the end.
The template of the church is the middle squares of this giant template, featuring, in most cases, a circle or a center of interest in the middle of the screen, being partly a reflection of a giant rose window in the church, a giant stained glass window.
These are songs about the corn belt. And some of the people in it are The subject is dismount.
Dismount. It's going to be the death of me.
Or to arrive is to dismount.
Joke.
And Dwayne.
Talking Dwayne itch. Dwayne can barely talk.
And Gwen.
Do I dare ask?
Two girls itch Gwen.
Where are we? What is this? 12 hours in the car. Beer is gone. My head hurts.
We're part of something larger than ourselves.
That's an insight that you pick out.
Road.
Now, in the case of Snowdrift, it was different.
She was a pal of Gwen's.
And we called her that because in winter, in your car at night, it was easy to get in her.
Joke.
There was a great emphasis in my family when I was a child to be very careful about how you said things. I mean, there was some sort of social connotation to the way you talked and the way you pronounced words and that kind of thing. So that I think that was my principal musical education. I dedicate this one to you, Snowdrift. Long live the avant.
Long live the avant.
Whoa.
Avant-garde.
And I started taking the study of the sound and the way people talk more seriously than maybe I should have. Especially in the earlier pieces and songs that I did. I never had the opportunity, really, to work with a dialect pattern over such a big piece.
It's not exactly what I thought it was. Do you know what I mean?
Well, roughly, I've read that stuff and I know there's some problems. But I think you'll outgrow it. And you must be the captain of the football team. What an honor.
That's right, asshole. I came all the way from home for this. I have come here with Dwayne, and while he's far from perfect, he is reliable.
In Perfect Lives, I tried to make a musical form that would allow the individual players in the piece, Blue Jean, Jill and David, Peter, to make musical statements that were as unpremeditated as speech itself. In other words, I specifically went away from the notion that I would write a piece, that I would write notes that other people would execute with some sort of criterion of accuracy or something. It may be rehearsed, it may be, it may have become habitual in the way that your speech is habitual, but the utterance itself is unpremeditated.
You wed, you take strapping Ed to be your lawful wedded husband, too have and too old in sickness and in health, until there is no parting.
Yes.
Your mother and your father were normal.
Yes. Oh, God.
Last night I saw on TV that in China evens are disappearing, or evidence all over shows that if things are not as endless or revolutionary, that principal events like majestic mountains of time are marks of our origin, or the form we take now for a long time. For instance, the question of, I asked a friend of mine who had married against her family's wishes, they being forced whether there is any idea
in science,
convinced her on the question of why most people are Chinese, and I saw
on TV
about the business at the bank and the note. It's possible the 9 Center didn't even think that it's just not something he would ever do.
I thought
to myself, what about the Marcos? Oh, he was different from us, we live here. Plains of earth, the plains of time. My friend and I were sitting in an alcove. There was a dream we inhabited, that is. Our friend shared the dream with others. Always just missed tangible. The wife was always in the kitchen. I saw on TV recently that his family had been persuaded that is lived in by a ghost.
Forgive my language.
Thought that was only proper. She was quoted that she thought they could coexist.
As it were.
Think about the alcove. They are the fondest things in her. Bulges from time with bulges. Around us at the party, the tangible. Those were the days when I worked with loudness. The music was there and loud when I signed it. So I knew what I was doing, but in the middle of, she poured a drink in my head.
That was a shock.
Such as our use of drugs. Turn it to the horizontal. They place it on the altar. They make in this arrangement an horizon of a sort, framed by the glorious bouquet. The presents of flowers on either side. Bridesmaids and grooms, ushers are in mourning, if that's the proper word. But first, let's listen to the marriage sermon.
You can be married without a partner.
Tennis, you're playing against yourself.
The other person is a convenience.
Same with talk.
Different rules, same truth.
Conversation must come
before marriage.
Let me see if I can say it.
First, the rule.
Don't talk to yourself.
Why is that rule?
That rule is a reminder
that talk
is not a part of understanding.
Sound is a part of understanding.
And among arrangements of sound,
we have talk,
which is a habit.
Well said.
This song is dedicated to Kay Strawn.
If the center template of the church is meant to signify a zeroing in or a concentration, the slight moving up of this particular template to the backyard, which is a similar square but moved up towards the top of the screen, in a sense being prepared to move completely off the screen.
Want me to take you up in my small plane?
These are songs about the corn belt and some of the people in it. He makes a double line.
4, 5, 2.
She makes 2 from 1 and 1.
3.
She makes a perfect system every day.
4.
She makes it work.
5.
She stands there in the doorway of her mother's house.
6.
Looking at the grass and the sky and at where they meet.
7.
Never once thinking thoughts like
8.
it's so like a lie.
6.
For her, piano playing is the only mystery.
7.
It's so beautiful, and how they do it, no one knows.
8.
She gets catalogs every star in the mail.
9.
Everything imaginable is pictured.
10.
She finds her way among the pictures without hesitation.
11.
Happiness is just around the corner.
My contribution to the performance aspects is pretty fixed. In essence, my greatest role will be played when the final television version actually comes across, when images like this are not just background information for the performance, not just a part of a stage dressing, but when the integration of these images and these ideas in terms of template actually merge with template versions of the performance, where the way the musicians are framed and their attitudes within the frame are combined with our preparatory materials. We will have the final version. And in essence, the performance of Perfect Lives is nothing more than a staging or a waiting or holding period before the actual television version, which is how the opera was intended to be seen.
We think they burned him.
4.
He was too positive.
5. 2.
Fight fire with fire.
I think now television has reached the point where there is the necessity for pieces which demand repeated viewings. No longer do I think it's viable to do these one-shot TV shows like sitcoms or news shows or game shows, and where you watch it once and then that's it. That's why in America the major networks are declining. But I think it's very much has the idea of television and video, which can be perceived and experienced in the same way music can be, where you go back and you might not get the whole thing, to be tried if you listen to Bach or Beethoven or Schoenberg or the Beach Boys. I mean, you're not going to get everything the first time through, but you're going to want to go back and to pick up things that you miss. I mean, I've heard this piece hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'm still hearing new things or new connections are made apparent.
9.
Till the sun is 18 degrees down, more or less, clear gloom 5, greener and paler than dust. Dust 6, redder than paler than clear to lose.
4. 5. 6. Section 3. 5. Track 2.
George,
3.
what's going on?
Basically, what this particular image, which is from the backyard, gets across is our desire to give a feeling, a sensation to the audience without there being a specific involved. And in the live performance, it's unfortunate that we use these kind of images as background visuals, similar to background music or incidental music. And I say unfortunate because the background quality of the images doesn't really come off the same way. There's no way to really give you a wash of something without there being a level of concentration in the audience that sort of belies that desire. Coming up is a very interesting exchange of images which gives the sort of sensation we're trying to get across without, again, being specific. Here's Jill as Isolde coming across the field of the tractor, and she will turn away to essentially reveal David behind her. And part of the notion, I think, that makes Perfect Lives so brilliant is that things can happen without you really understanding them or even acknowledging them, but yet your heart can skip a little bit, or you'll be shocked or surprised, or there's something will happen which will give you a sensation that will amaze you or astound you.
And that comes clothed in light, so to speak.
4.
She loathes the dark.
She sleeps in light.
6.
She likes highness. 4,128 feet here. 4,218 feet there.
9.
Coincidence isn't a mystery to her. But the Masonic secret lies there. The church forbids its angels entry there.
5.
The gypsies camp there. Let us exchange there.
7.
Mothers weep there.
8.
It is night there.
I think one could define this piece as being very much a part of a new generation of television, packed with information, intellectual information, sensual information, whimsical information, which has come of age in the same way that in the past 5 or 10 years, rock and roll has come of age.
Now to them.
13. 2. 3.
That simple notion of coincidence among coincidence that all one needs to know.
4.
My mind watches my breath, soothing itself. My mind sees every part of my breath.
10.
My breath is not indifferent to itself.
Section F. 2.
She waked at 10.
2.
She remembers 10. She left dark at 10. It's just that way.
8.
The firmness of it is a consolation.
Insert 6. Count 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 6. 11.
She is Earth.
12.
We are the sun.
13.
People are gathered in the backyard.
14.
This is the celebration of the changing of the light.
15.
They do it as often as they can in summer.
16.
They come to talk.
21.
At long last, have we found a real piece of television?
It's a breakthrough. Perfect Lives is a breakthrough piece. When it's finally done, it'll be so breathtaking and so perfect in a certain way that it'll make people gasp.
I'm not the same person that I used to be.